Competition is as American as apple pie. We spend hours watching sports, game shows, talent competitions, you name it. We love competition, especially when others are doing it. And a key part of a successful acquisition is getting others to compete. In fact, federal acquisition regulations and practices explicitly favor competition, as anyone who has tried to write a sole source justification lately knows. But let's focus on how you can use competition to your benefit. First, let's understand a basic principle. The more attractive the prize, the more vigorous the competition. The more you understand both sides of that equation, the greater the likelihood that you can set up a competition, a game if you will, that will yield the greatest value to you. Understanding your side of the equation is important and easier to do, but understanding how it looks from the other side is the key to getting competition. And that means understanding the risk and reward profiles you present. Know the domain you're working in. Competition is different for office supplies, construction projects, professional services, complex IT systems, and cloud services, for example. Does the domain have young, hungry, price-disruptive competitors? Or is it dominated by a few large players? Know the time dimension of your needs. Are you awarding a fixed price task where all the competition happens before award? Or a multi-year blanket purchase agreement or IDIQ vehicle that will present ongoing opportunities for competition? Know the likely players in your game. Understand their business models and how they make their money. If you're buying shrink-wrap products, your suppliers are probably using a manufacturer or reseller model where higher volume most often leads to lower costs that can be passed along to you. Professional services companies tend to use a labor-oriented business model where unit costs tend to rise over time and be less sensitive to volume. These folks make their money by selling you more hours. Ever heard of change orders? Cloud infrastructure providers and telecom carriers use an invest and recover business model with upfront capital investment recovered through utility-like usage charges. High volume, long-term usage draws these competitors in. Set up your solicitation not only to specify your requirements, but also to define the rules of your competitive game. Fine-tune your pricing structures, ordering procedures, terms and conditions, and so on, with this in mind. Remember that volume counts. The bigger the buy, the better the competition. But also that a $1 million opportunity looks a lot bigger to a small business than it does to a $3 billion per year government contractor. Remember that risks for your suppliers turn into costs for you. Try to avoid requirements that add to their costs if possible. Don't ask them to compete on price in areas where they don't control the costs. If you're creating a BPA or an IDIQ, use price transparency to fuel natural competition. If each contract holder can see the other's prices, they will self-correct. One more thing, make sure your evaluation criteria are clear and reflect the rules of the game. In any multiple award situation, make sure the criteria are strong enough to pick both winners and losers. Competitors who don't see a possibility of losing are less likely to give you their very best offer. So remember, competition is a game, and you get to set the rules. If you set up the playing field fairly and well, your acquisition will win.